It's the most wonderful time of the week. It's Friday, it's midday, and it's Wow Ergonomics. Hi, Steve. How's your
Hello,
week been?
Graham. How are you? Enjoying the sunshine?
Do you know what? I'm so glad it's been sunny this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely glad, because my wife has had to go out and about around the country this week.
Right.
Like she's been traveling Tewkesbury and up to nearly sort of Cheshire area today, and all over the shop, which has meant there's no car at home, which has meant I've had to walk everywhere with the kids, and that is not fun when it's
No.
raining. But I'm not going to be one of those English people that moans about the weather. Oh no, because although that will come into the conversation today about the English way in which we just, stiff upper lip and persevere and then moan about it, as we talk to our special guest today, who is Rachel, who we will introduce in a minute. But where have you been today? Or not today, this week, because I know where you are today. You're here.
Where have I been this week? Sheffield.
Wow.
And mainly at home, so nothing too glamorous. Nothing wrong with Sheffield, lovely city, but
a home of heavy metal.
Yes. This is where I was almost going to say who I think's from there, and I thought I've made this mistake on the show before. Def Leppard from Sheffield.
Def Leppard, yeah, and of course, other bands like Judas Priest and all of those, yeah. British Steel, the famous album, yeah.
And of course, instantly think of Sheffield, you think of the Full Monty, don't you?
You do. Well, but then we put it out of our minds really quickly, because that's a worrying thought at any time.
Mark Addy wrapped in cling film eating a Mars bar in a fridge, in a shed or something like that, wasn't it?
It's really not an image that I want to have.
Let's move on. Let's move on away from Sheffield as quick as we can.
Let's bring Rachel into the fore in order to move this conversation into an altogether more intelligent climb. Rachel, thanks for joining us.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Hello, we're good. Rachel. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yes, I'm enjoying the sunshine, this eternal sunshine that the UK seems to have adopted recently, and I'll take it for as long as it's here.
The eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Rachel, tell us a little bit about you.
So I was a teacher for 12 years in the classroom. I have since launched a tutoring company called Lara Tuition and Consultancy. I am incredibly busy. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, 2 little boys. My 4-year-old is starting school in September, which is all very exciting. We've just bought his backpack, but I accidentally bought the backpack for the junior school, not the infant school. So he would actually fit in the backpack, but it's okay. We'll work with it. So I've just finished my doctoral research, and I've completed the first draft of my doctoral thesis in education, which I'm sure you're going to ask me lots of questions about. And I look at mothers' experience of working in education post-motherhood.
Wow. So there's so many different places that we could start with. So many different places. Let's start on the education side of things, right? I have a massive kind of interest in education, and I guess how that kind of transposes into the business sector as well. Because one of the things that I found is that there seems to be, especially in sort of the commercial sector, there seems to be this kind of want to just carry on with training, carry on with education, but not necessarily at the right level. So we go through our lives when we're young, doing all of this different attainment and making sure that we prove that we are that we know our learning. And teachers obviously go to school to learn how to teach and whatever. And then we get out into the workplace, and suddenly we've got everybody training or teaching people, and none of them have trained in how to train or how to teach. And then we've got lots of people getting training which isn't necessarily effective, and then they're training other people, and it potentially all goes wrong. And one of the things that perhaps Stephen and I both see is that then dissolves into sort of education which at best is kind of just tick boxing, where we basically go, oh yeah, you've done that now, right? And therefore you know it, and then it doesn't work. Anything from all of your experience you could pick up on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from my experience of working in education, I can see, and the research that I've conducted, I can see that there is a real crisis with teacher recruitment and retention, particularly of really talented staff. The biggest group of people leaving the teaching profession is women aged 30 to 39, and that's sort of what inspired my research. And I've had quite a few conversations with agents, education agents, about working with teacher parents. And I said, okay, well, it's a double-edged sword. You have somebody who's incredibly talented, incredibly efficient, and somebody, when they become a parent, they learn how to work under pressure. They're very compassionate about the students they work with and the people, the team that they have, but they might have to drop a lesson, or they might have to go home within minutes to go and see their sick child because family comes first. And schools are currently, my research is suggesting that flexible policies exist, but only in name only. So leadership uptake of such policies is minimal and culturally discouraged. Looking at a lot at the Scandinavian system, there are shared parental leave uptake is not over 90% compared to 5% in the UK.
Wow.
So there are real systemic, cultural and structural support disparities for teachers. So if we're not supporting our teachers sufficiently, how are our teachers therefore supposed to support their students effectively? That's I think my take on it.
Yeah, and we all became teachers for a minute during COVID. So
Absolutely.
Some of us better than others.
Well, but I think it all taught us a lesson, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it really did, because we suddenly realized that what was actually involved in doing this stuff. And I'm look, hands up, I think most of us pretty much hated it. There were aspects of it that I quite enjoyed.
Lunch.
Flexible lunching options.
Stuff like that.
Return of puddings with custard, wasn't it?
Anything where
only when you've wiped down all of your food from Asda with a anti-bac wipe before you put it in the fridge, or you have to leave it on your front doorstep for a couple of hours before welcoming it into your home.
Well, I think we all very quickly became very creative, or realised we could become quite creative. I think when we first started, we were all sort of like logging onto Google Classrooms or whatever was provided, and trying to follow through these different learning activities, etc. And then some of us realized, well, actually we could perhaps teach this in a different way, which actually suited us better. And then it, and I think there were some real good lessons learned in that. But I think we did realize just how difficult all of this is. We need teachers. We need teachers to be supported, etc. But
sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say it's all about celebration. So I think a lot of my research, I was really, really keen for my research not to just focus on stories where people are struggling. It's really trying to uplift teachers who are still thriving in the profession. And if people leave teaching and go into other professions, it's really celebrating the skills that they've developed in teaching to then bring into different fields in different workplaces. So a lot of it's really interesting. You were talking about, logging on to Google Workspace during lockdown, but things like remote collaboration tools, they can decentralize leadership pathways, opening senior roles to flexible schedules, and thinking about how we can use edtech to play a crucial role in reshaping not only teacher mothers but all teachers, inclusion and professional sustainability. So really thinking, how can we use those tools that we developed during lockdown to support teachers and parents generally, not only learn themselves, because we're all learners, aren't we? But also the children that we work with and the children around us. Everyone is a teacher and everybody is a learner, and celebrating that and how we can support teacher parents and parents generally is kind of the core of what I do.
Rachel, I was going to say we sort of craved sort of getting back to normality and moving away from these tools. Has it gone too far in terms of reversing that? Are these tools now to a degree almost redundant within the teaching education sector? And have we sort of missed a trick in that there was actually a bit of a point in the middle that was good? Have we gone too far the other way and sort of forgot all those learnings from COVID?
I think the data would suggest that it hasn't gone too far, and actually we should lean more into using technology and edtech to support teachers and teacher parents. So, for example, 77% of teachers report difficulty balancing professional and familial responsibilities. So if such a high proportion of practitioners are finding it difficult to maintain that balance, and during lockdown they had the balance where they were spending more time with their families, but then we forced them back into classrooms and offices and they're struggling again to maintain that balance, surely we should be looking to use edtech more to support them in the roles that they are in now.
Totally agree. Now listen, I just want a fun moment in the middle of this highly intelligent conversation, right? Stephen and then Rachel, and then I'll answer it. What is the most fun bit of edtech that you've played with your children?
Ooh, can you come back to me, because I need to think about this. So
Rachel,
I'm passing it down Rachel, that way. No,
most
that
fun
way,
bit of
Rachel.
edtech that you've played with your children with, or you've learned with, and it's taught you something.
So if it's my personal children, my 2-year-old and 4-year-old, the best £9 or £8.99 that I spend a month is on an app called Baby Games, and it's the go-to. It's got a little duck. It's blue and it's got a little duck. My youngest calls it Ducky app, which whatever. But it is the best go-to. We both pay. My husband and I both pay premium subscriptions to this because there's so many games for the children to play with, and it just keeps them quiet for so long. It's so good for long haul flights, or if we don't use the phones in the car because obviously cleaning vomit up from the upholstery is undesirable at the best of times. But yeah, I think it's the best way for my boys to just keep quiet while we're somewhere else for dinner. We're out for dinner, and I am absolutely not adverse to using digital babysitters if it means that I get to enjoy a nice tasty meal. So big fan.
Why not?
I like that. Right, my two favourites. I'll let you go, Stephen. My two favourites are I think Spelling Shed or Spell Shed is brilliant. Where you have to there's a bit on that where you have to shoot at a goal with these letters, and then you have to put the letters in the right order to spell the words out. And me and my youngest have great fun in seeing who can do it the quickest, right? So you're 10 words, got to get 10 words correct, etc. And if you can do it in like a matter of seconds or nanoseconds, then it's brilliant, right? So there's a competitive edge to that. And then I don't actually know what the name of this is, but more recently he's got me playing a platform game with him with penguins, and you both have to play it together. So this is quite good because there's a collaborative effort part of it, which I always love anything that's collaborative, and it's a maths based game. So basically you got to move these penguins around, and it's almost like an open world. It just keeps on going, coming up with more and more different scenarios. So a little bit like back in the day, Hungry Miner or something like that we used to play, but back on the old Commodore 64. And you move them around, and you have to like move levers together or jump on buttons to open bits so that the other person can get through, and you pick up these ice creams, etc. And then when you've completed a level, the doors appear, and then you get asked maths questions, and if you get the maths questions right, you can go through the doors, and then you get to the next level. But you have to help each other get to the next level, and I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Stephen, have you thought of one?
I haven't. I'm going to leave it very simply as this. Any app that gets my youngest son to do his homework is amazing. I mean, I'm not even sure if such an app actually exists, but that would be my sort of utopia of educational app, would be something that gets a child who doesn't want to do homework to do his homework.
Surely that's called PayPal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
that seems to have worn off, though. The financial bribery, and it sort of comes to an end, and it only will take you so far, I've discovered. So yeah, that's my request, would be an app that, well, actually, I mean, at one point there was talk of, can we get ChatGPT to the homework, of which I said absolutely not. So that is my least favorite educational app, is anything that shortcuts the homework. So yeah.
Shortcuts it for you or your child, however, because I find that with a lot of anything maths or physics based, I'm just like, please help me, ChatGPT.
Rachel, we have it in our utility. We have a whiteboard which has all the homework listed with when it's due and all the subject. I just like to go to the fridge and look to the left and see that whiteboard has got nothing on it. I ask for no more than that in life, but a clean whiteboard, and I just feel so much more relaxed there.
I'll tell you the bit that I think is missing, that which we've lost since COVID with regards to the tech side of things, and I'd love to get your view on this, Rachel. That the bit that I think is missing is the kind of 360 feedback loop, right? Because what was happening when you use those different platforms within the COVID period was that you would do an exercise with the child. There would be feedback from all of the other kids and their parents as to, you know, how they got on with the exercise. Then there was feedback from the teacher. Now what we get is, and this is partly answering your question as well, Stephen. Now what we get is we get notifications via whatever app it is for our eldest quite often that say, your child has not started their homework. In reality, right, the reason they haven't started that homework is because they literally got set that homework that day, and that's why they haven't started it yet. By the time they get home, they're meant to have completed that homework according to the app. So the timelines aren't there. But what there is never in there anymore is that kind of feedback loop from the teachers. Now, I understand that that's possibly not plausible in terms of time or whatever, but I think if you're going to encourage sort of 360 learning, and you're going to encourage parents to be more involved in the educational process of their children, you kind of somehow almost need that bit to happen as well. So that if a parent, and let's face it, we had this conversation in the kitchen the other day, what they're taught in schools now, what we learned in schools back when, it's nothing like each other, right? When I did subjects at school, what they're learning now is bonkers compared with what we used to learn. So it's not like parents can normally help children with homework unless they're a teacher themselves. The only thing we can do is we can help encourage them, and we can help to the best of our ability. So but if we don't know whether they're actually doing well or not and we still have this system in schools which seems a bit archaic to me, right? If we've got businesses moving towards regular continual feedback systems, not saying that they all do, some still do the year appraisal and whatever, and that's so outdated it really needs to change. But if we have a system like that in schools where, you know, once in a blue moon you have a parents' evening, you go along and find out that your child's not been doing as well as they should, that's ridiculous. You need to know right away that they're not doing so well so that you can help them.
No, absolutely. And I think I completely agree. So for example, it's not practical from a classroom perspective, but from my teaching from my tutoring business, Lara, we have WhatsApp groups that include the parent and the child. And after every lesson, we send a report of a lesson overview, the key takeaways from that lesson for the child, something that they did well, so what went well, I suppose, and an EBI, so an even better if. So after every lesson, we use that EBI to inform the teaching in the next lesson. So we also use that WhatsApp group to put the child's homework for that week prior to our next session. So we are constantly in communication with both the parent and the child. Obviously, if they're a younger child, we tend to only do that with secondary school pupils. If it's with younger children, it's just with the parent. But we have, after every single lesson, we don't take on a huge amount of pupils because we offer such a bespoke service, and that kind of that high level of engagement to make sure that the students are constantly learning and demonstrating progress. If it's not progress in the grade that they are achieving, it's the skill acquisition. So we're seeing them apply those skills in a different capacity to a different topic. And I think schools, it's really interesting that you say that 360. A lot of businesses are still not yet to incorporate the 360 approach to feedback with their teams. I think having like an opportunity within the edtech space, I think professional development platforms, particularly maybe virtual coaching or leadership training, they can address access. They can address access inequality for part-time staff. So a lot of schools are steering away from enabling staff, particularly from middle management and above, to work part-time, but there are so many ways that we can use technology to enable them to do so more effectively. And I think, there's a really strong case for embedding more care-conscious design into edtech platforms. So systems really need to acknowledge and counteract gendered labor expectations, so not replicate them digitally. Edtech has to be inclusion-led and not just efficiency-driven. So thinking there has to be that care element to whatever technology is used to enable that 360 approach to CPD, to leadership, to coaching, to feedback. But it has to have care and compassion at its core. Otherwise, it's just not going to be effective in the long term.
No, totally. Now, Rachel, here's one I'd like to ask you about, because this is something that I've experienced. I know friends of mine have experienced, and this is something I expected to have gone away with in the post-COVID world. Online parents' evenings.
Oh yes, we had those. They're brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think it's interesting what you were touching on earlier, is talking about it gives that element of flexibility, which I guess helps with teachers' family lives and retaining staff, and that's all very good. But as someone who works in sales and goes out to meetings, I also think you can't beat sitting down face to face and having that conversation. So what's sort of your personal thought, and what's the sort of the teaching profession's thought around the sort of virtual parents' evenings, and in terms of not going back to face? Where does the whole thing stand, and what's your sort of thoughts on it?
So I think when you have a class of 30 children and then you're teaching 5 to 6 classes of 30 children, it's not practical. I just remember sitting in a hall pre-COVID with parents. You only sit down for 3 or 4 minutes with each parent, and then there's always that one parent who tries to elbow their way into the 1 4-minute gap you've got to go and have a wee. They just sit down and go, now that you're free, can we just chat about Estelle just for another 5 minutes?
No, we can't.
No, I need a wee and a cup of tea in that order. Not necessarily in that order, but I need a break, so go away. Whereas, it is a little curt and a little potentially rude when you're mid-conversation, and the video literally goes off after 4 minutes. So if a parent is having you're giving some particularly important feedback to the parent, or the parent's having a good old moan and it cuts them off after 5 minutes. It's both a blessing and a curse, depending on respectively who it affects. And I think so. I'm a really strong advocate of having phone conversations with people, and actually I can't remember the statistics, but it's, the amount of times that you can resolve problems just by talking to the person and having that conversation. They see you as a human who cares about their child, and I suppose in sales it must be similar. They can see that you're not just a fact or a figure or a website. You're a person, and you believe in the product that you're selling. You're not just a face of a product. You're not just an advert to sell them something. You genuinely believe in the product that you are selling, potentially, hopefully, and you can see the benefit that it would bring to somebody's life. So actually that human element is essential for things like sales. And I think it's an essential component of human relations. You have to have that human to human interaction. So, but I think you can achieve that online, so long as you have, you don't have an avatar speaking on your behalf, which may be the future. Who knows?
Let's go back to the word that you mentioned earlier, Rachel, which is inclusion. If we're going to be inclusive, what we need to stop doing is going, well, we're going to do it this way or that way. We need to actually offer both ways. We need to make available opportunity, right? Because let's think about it from this point of view. When you create a parents' evening in work time, right? Because let's face it, most of them are in work time, right? And this is one thing that really annoys the out of me with schools. Schools work on school time, and they don't understand that parents work, right?
Yes.
It's good.
No, I completely.
Schools are great for parents that don't work, right? Yeah, absolutely perfect. They exist as if we can all just drop everything tomorrow and just come into school. We're gonna look at their books tomorrow at this time. No, we're not, because I've got a business meeting. That's not going to happen. But if we create opportunities that enable people who are working, people who are busy, people who have disabilities that are going to find it difficult to actually physically get into school to do these things, right?
Yes.
Then actually what we're doing is we're ensuring that more people have access to those conversations, and actually some of the time it's probably those people that we really need to see, right?
No, I completely. Oh, sorry.
No, and I just don't think that happens at the moment. I think what we do is we have, and COVID showed us this. We had one way of doing it then. Now we've got another way of doing it now, and we haven't thought, why don't we make a blended way of doing this, which actually answers all things.
No, I completely agree, and I'm that completely struck me about 2 weeks ago when I had an email from my son's new primary school, and it said, right, he's got parent teacher induction days, these 5 days between June and the end of July, beginning of June and end of July, to welcome him into the classroom. The parent can then meet the teacher, and you can get to know the parents and build up your network. And I thought, if I hadn't left my job in the classroom, I was working 3 days a week, so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. If I hadn't left that job on the 29th of April this year, I wouldn't have been able to accompany my new 4-year-old to go to any of these, not one of these induction. I would missing out on so much by working in the classroom, because there's this lack of flexibility, and that's the only one opportunity. There were no like options you can have. Oh, maybe you could do a Friday or a Monday, or there was nothing. No, these are the 5 dates. These are the 5 times between 9 and 10:30 in the morning. And it's not. So my husband won't be able to come to any of them because he works in the city. So it's no wonder that, so many people, women and parents generally, are either leaving teaching generally or leaving jobs to become self-employed, more independent practitioners in their field. And that's exactly what I've done. And I am now a statistic officially. And I'm you know what, I'm okay with that, because it means that I can be there for my children. If you've got 77%, I said it earlier, 77% of parents saying that they have difficulty balancing professional family responsibilities. What on earth are we doing? My business partner, Lauren, love her. She's just got a work mobile. So we're going to use the work mobile to have conversations. We're going to have office hours. So when we're working with agents, they can communicate with us during, I don't know, 9 to 5 or whatever it is. But between the two of us, we are very, very aware that running a business, working in certain industries isn't a 9 to 5 job. The best conversations that I have are where I send her a voice note in my pajamas at 1 o'clock in the morning because I've woken up to have a really good, I've had a brainwave, a really good idea. And then maybe she won't respond to it until 5 minutes past 6 in the morning when her son wakes up. But it's that openness and that acceptance that the business doesn't work 9 to 5. Parents don't work 9 to 5. It's just not how the world works anymore, and that's okay. I remember having a conversation with some of the teachers at one of my previous jobs, and they were saying, we do not want to receive emails outside of working hours or past 9 p.m. And I thought, okay, but some parents, for example, I can't work between 4 p.m. when I finish school and 7 p.m. when my children go to bed because I'm with my children, and then I have to stay awake for an hour to make sure that if my child wants a snack, I can go and get a snack for him, and I can't work undisturbed until maybe 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. Whatever the timings were. So I said, well, I mean, I'm not forcing you to check your email. I'm not forcing you to respond to that email at 1 a.m. If I were, there'd be a very different, more serious conversation. But just understanding that it is your personal responsibility to detach yourself from your technology when you need to, and compartmentalizing both. I know it's easier said than done, and I know there's pressures, and obviously there are deadlines that need to be met. But sometimes it is down to you. If you don't want to be contacted, or you don't want to be made aware of a certain topic, or an email that's been sent to you at a certain time, then don't check your email at that time. Just make it clear that you will respond to it within 24 to 48 hours. And that gives you a nice time frame in which to do so. This is a bugbear of mine because I'm always, the people I work with understand that, we have to be flexible. And it has to be, being interrupted is okay. And having this flexibility is okay. We are working people. We understand that flexibility is paramount for, I'm rambling now. But my point being is that flexibility is really, really important for parents and all industries.
Well, but I'm going to ask, why has this all changed, right? I'm sitting here thinking, why has this all changed? Is work so different these days, right? Is culture, the culture that we live in, so different these days that now we can't deal with, we've got this massive problem. If 77%, that's a huge amount of people can't get this kind of whatever you want to call it, balance, integration, whatever, right in their lives. What is it? Is that work's changed or whatever? Or have we just become less resilient? Or do we not have? Are we just moaning about it more? Have we become more self-aware? What are the elements that have changed there?
I think it's a really good question, and I think a lot of it comes down to society and the roles that they have cast for the gender roles that they have created. So just to throw another statistic in there, so 63% of female teachers engage in unpaid pastoral care, but only 18% of male teachers do. With 90% of primary teachers being female, 44% of them are mothers. So there's a lot of emotional labor is disproportionately carried by women and remains undervalued in formal performance structures. So I think the world that we are in now, the gender performativity reinforces caregiving as a natural female trait. And that's always been the case. Everyone's assumed that, right, woman, female, mother, carer, compassionate. But it's not the policies that are now in place aren't moving with the times sufficiently to support mothers and parents generally, who both are required to work and parent. So I think there is an expectation that flexible working is, protected theoretically, but practically it's inaccessible, particularly on leadership tracks. So the idea is a lot of the leadership expectations and expectations within the corporate world are coded around this uninterrupted service and masculine availability norms, rather than if you're a mother, you have potentially different obligations to the father. I know that when I was in the classroom and I had to ring a parent, I would instinctively ring the mum, because I would assume the dad would be at work, and that the mum would be responsible. I don't know why, but that's just the way I have a kind of a unconscious bias that's how I would work. And how does that translate into sales and other areas, different fields?
Is it a financial thing? Is it to do with availability of care? Do you think, Stephen? I mean, growing up, both my parents worked. I'd say that my dad always worked full time. My mum at times worked part time, and other times she worked full time. At times when both my parents worked full time, we could just be dropped off at somebody's house. Right?
Yeah.
There was always somebody that, and typically there would always be somebody else's mum who wasn't working, and we could be left with them, and that was all okay. To some extent, you can't just do that now, because pretty much everybody, from a financial point of view, most couples are both working, right? So is it that we just haven't got the people available in society now? Childcare is incredibly expensive. If you're going to
£108 a day per child
if you're
at my nursery.
If you're going to work, then you're going to spend most of that money, if not, more on the childcare. And
absolutely,
is that the problem? Is it a fiscal problem here, do you think, that's like driving all of this?
Well, I've got a bit of I've got a literal window into the street, because I work at the front of my house, and we have a school on our road. So when I'm working at home like today, you see everything going on, and it's fascinating. But that's some other conversations about dog walkers and
people
things
watching.
like that. Yeah, but it is this. It's just a visual thought, is that when the schools go in, the street empties. In terms of, most of the people around here on my street have got 2 cars. Most of them, are obviously both. A lot of children parents live on our road, because it's a road in between 2 schools. But I look out now, and there are virtually no cars or anything. So I think it's just a feeling I've got, is that both parents generally are working. I think in the majority of houses, whether it's a full-time and a part-time, or 2 part-times, or 2 flexibles, whatever it is, I think that is the case, is that you generally do have that situation of both people working, and that then just has implications on other elements of flexibility, doesn't it? It is difficult where previously one parent worked and one didn't. Actually, when they both are, it's like, well, whose responsibility is that? Who do we pick it up? Like you're saying, Rachel, who do I pick the phone up? Do I pick up the phone to mom or dad, or mom or stepdad, or whoever? Knowing which way to go is very difficult, I think, now. There was always that natural ring the mother. Let's be honest, my dad worked full time. My mom worked, if she did work, it was part time, in a small window where she was available at either end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, my research has completely, it's shone a light, it's spotlighted a lot of kind of my participants' experiences along those lines. So some of my participants who resisted the inbuilt systemic pressure to overperform post-maternity, to counter perceptions of this kind of reduced commitment to their job, they may have set clear boundaries, or refusing to do unpaid labor, so working Saturdays, or the extra helping out with the show because there's the expectation to go above and beyond. But often the participants that I've spoken to faced professional penalties. So leadership roles are often implicitly reserved for those who meet these rigid expectations of presence and full-time availability. So on one hand, yes, I'm saying a lot of businesses do require the ability to communicate any time in any way that works with the people involved, but that's where the communication comes in. So actually talking to your team and saying, well, what is your preferred means of communication? Would you prefer me to just contact you on LinkedIn? Do you want me to just contact you on WhatsApp? What works for you? And actually maintaining that dialogue, that open dialogue, to make sure that people are happy with it, whichever means and method works, to collaborate most effectively.
Yeah, do you know what? Comedy quite often shines a light on things that are actually really very wrong. We watched a film last week where one of the main characters in the film, she's a lawyer wanting to make partner in a law firm, and she gets overlooked by this young male junior. And there's a line in the film where the senior partner, he keeps telling her, he says, "Oh, you've got other priorities now," meaning her child. And there's a line in the film where she gets told that she hasn't made partner, that he gets made partner. And he said, well, because he was available. And that's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that happens, right? This is actually true, right? And you can even see it on things like LinkedIn. There's this kind of prevailing culture. It's like, well, I'm available for the 24 hours a day, 8 days a week hustle. You're not. I'm going to succeed. You're not. And even though we try and then see other people go, oh yeah, but what I'm doing is working through the work-life balance, and I'm doing this and that and the other. The reality of it is that it's harder if you're going to try and grow your business or grow your position within an organization if you're going to prioritize family. Where do we start putting this stuff right? I mean, I think until organizations actually have conversations with their staff about stuff that is not work, it ain't going to happen. Right. So until they actually, and this is actually really very difficult for organizations, but until they actually prioritize not profit, but people, until they actually start to say, what is it that really could make your job easier here in terms of tell me about your life and let me help with your life as well. Right. Because you're selling your soul to me. I'd like to at least make sure you're comfortable in doing that. And also with the educational bit as well, I'd love to see schools getting more conversational with businesses as well, so they actually understood this stuff, right? Because it does seem at the moment that schools don't understand the working world. Now, maybe they actually do, and they just choose to ignore it because from their selfish commercial point of view, it makes more sense to ignore it. But at least maybe if they were having those conversations and understood and heard the rub a bit more, maybe something would change. What?
It's really interesting. So I think I used to be head of careers at my previous school for a short while before I had my children. And my husband used to work for Google, and he ran a school trip for the some of the children doing, I think it was GCSE computer science. They went up to the Google office in London and had a day of activity. It was really cool.
I'd done that when I was
it was nice. Super cool. But it was really interesting. And I got Ian, my husband, in to do a couple of careers talks about access to, working in the tech space. And I remember him having a conversation with one of my colleagues who had just come back from paternity leave. My colleague had just had 2 weeks off, and that was statutory. Now, Ian, my husband, got 4 months full pay paternity leave from Google.
Wow.
Complete game changer, to the point that I got a little fed up with him being around the house. I hope he doesn't listen to this. So I sent him to Greece.
Said, can you make it 2 months?
By the way, he ended up going to Greece to climb Mount Olympus for 3 weeks, just as I went back to work. Because I was like, get out of my hair. Anyway, long story short. But the fact that his and then he could also take that time, he could break that 4 months up any time across the first year of the baby's life.
Cool.
So cool. And he's got, what I think is a real testament to, and I'm not saying it's just because that he had that time with my sons, but in the middle of the night when, Ollie is done, wants some attention and more milk or whatever, he'll call out for his dad. He won't necessarily call out for me, or he'll go through all three of us. He'll say, Mummy, Daddy, Eddie. But that's so nice that it's not just mummy, mummy, mummy. He has such a bond with the three of us because we have such strong connection and time together that my husband was so involved in the first formative months of my children's lives that they lean on him, they trust him, and he is such a capable dad. And he learned a lot through that process too. So I think that flexibility and that I think it's just kindness and compassionate company. I mean, obviously there are multi-million-pound, billion-dollar companies, whatever, who can afford to do that. But if we can even have some takeaways,
because everyone could do something. It's the principle, isn't it? Where if the big company can't do that, can you do something a little bit more than what you've done before? Can you scale down?
I was going to say, I'm going to argue that actually, can businesses afford not to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, yes. The thing is, they would probably argue. I understand what you're saying. If it's a small business, it's only one or two of you, or whatever. Having a key person go, etc., is really difficult on that business.
Disruptive, yeah.
But there's a lot of businesses out there not doing this stuff, and ultimately, the potential is that you're going to lose a really great person.
Absolutely, and that's why we see retention of teacher parents. Or like professionals, parents who are also professionals. The retention and recruitment of these very, very highly talented individuals is stuck. We're stuck in a rut, and we need to think of a way. So a lot of the posts that I put on LinkedIn focus on the fact that my company works a lot with parents, and we're very, very, we take it as a given that the teacher will work well with the student, because nobody goes into teaching for the money. They sometimes go into it for the holidays. That was me. But but generally they go into it because it's their vocation. It's what they desperately want to do. I was born to teach. I was born to work with children. It's my passion. It's what gets me up in the morning, and I absolutely love it. So we take it as a given that any teachers and tutors that we work with will put the child first, because that's what they do. What we are doing as a company, that it makes us a little bit unpopular in the space, because it's not the norm. It's a little unorthodox, a little maverick, is that we put the tutors first. And we actually say, well, okay, if we're investing in our tutors and we're giving them, we really focus on their well-being, but in a way that works for them. So for example, we have a small collective of tutors that when we take on a new child, we will say to that parent, please understand that if one of our teachers is unavailable, within the collective of tutors, we will find a substitute tutor for that to maintain continuity of your child's education. Now, that works on quite a few levels. On one level, the tutor can go away and go on holiday. They can go and attend to their child if needs be. They have that flexibility. And on the other level, it shows that we are a company who invest in our staff because they are our greatest asset. And we have better relationships with teachers and tutors that we work with, because we not only trust them, but they trust us. And it's that mutual respect that we've developed. Now, on the other side, we also have Edify, which was originally my company, but that's now growing into this kind of slightly more, it's a non-profit. We don't work, we don't earn money from the tutors in this group, but they it's almost like a social network of tutors, because a lot of these tutors are solo sole traders. They just work by themselves. They don't have a team. So we have a few initiatives that we have in place. So, for example, we have tea and tantrums, where some of our parents get together once a month just to whinge about their children and compare notes over coffee. We also have a running group that, you know, I stupidly did the London Marathon 2.5 weeks ago. It's very warm. And they ran out of water, but I don't think I meant to tell people that. Anyway, but yeah, we have like running groups. So we have parents who get together. A few of us are doing a 10K in July. We're going to get together. It means that we can support each other in our training. We message. We say, oh my God, I forgot to pack my electrolytes today. Like, or like I had to cut my run short because I don't know, a child had to be picked up from nursery early or whatever. But it's you get to talk about things other than teaching. The worst thing is when you go into a room of mutual like-minded professionals from the same field, they only talk about teaching, and it's so I'm so over talking about teaching. I actually have found myself again. I love running. I love traveling. I love, you know, doing craft with my children. So I can talk to other parents and teachers who are in this space, that we have that in common. We have that mutual, I don't know, trauma, but we have something to talk about other than just work. And that's so pivotal and fundamental to our well-being.
I think these spaces are really important. And I think this is part of the solution going forward, really, is companies and organizations making available these spaces to talk about stuff that isn't work, right?
Absolutely.
Because you know, Steve, I mean, you sometimes when you're in a sector, or you go and meet people, it just sounds like the only thing that people talk about is the work, right?
Yeah.
And you wonder whether, like, it's a weird thing in a way if a group of people get together in a building and they never talk about anything else other than the work that they've got to do, and then they go home and then they talk about that work again to whoever they're married to, and then end up divorced because they just all they've ever talked about is work.
Teaching your kids.
And or the kids, and it's never about them and, you know, their life and whatever.
And this is where things like those groups are really important, because, as I say, with you look at the commercial sector, with people's working, you know, flexible different days, etc. There isn't as much, I guess, that sort of Friday evening visit to the pub after a long day in the office where you've all been compressed there for 5 hours, where you'd have that. You haven't got that anymore, so you have to bring something else in that creates that different subject matter, that team spirit, that getting to know people. And that's where these, whether it's a virtual group online, whether it's a WhatsApp group, they're really, really important to sort of foster those relationships. As I say, that almost that virtual Friday drink after a week in the office has sort of been replaced by something that is looking to achieve the same but isn't actually the same.
It's amazing. I went to the London Collective. I went to a networking event 2 weeks ago, run by Jerry Williams and her business partner Hilary. And so Jerry is a international accountancy expert, and I tutor her children. That's how I got involved. She very kindly invited my business partner along. So we turned up to this London Collective and we thought, oh no, it's only people in finance and it's only accountants. But actually, some of the best conversations I had, I got chatting to this really lovely chap, South African guy who does a lot of scuba diving and has a home in Spain. I was talking to this other, and we're talking about
always useful.
And, really useful, really,
school
really
holidays.
Good to know. But he was talking to me about his daughter and his daughter's her journey into becoming a dance teacher and the fact that she speaks 3 languages. But it's these conversations it's fascinating conversations where I wouldn't normally have a chat with somebody in finance or an investment banker. It's just not in my network. But actually meeting people from all these different workspaces, you know, fields of expertise, was fascinating. And we found common ground that wasn't just professional, it was personal. And now we are looking for innovative ways to work with some of these people that we've from a completely different industry, that there are overlaps in either our personal or professional interests. But we would never have come across that had we not connected at an event. It's really, I love the fact that innovation comes from connection, and the connections that we can build, spontaneously with people. I think it's fantastic. It's so exciting.
Well, talking of that, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yeah,
my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been so good.
I hope this conversation has sparked some some thought and some interest out there from the people that have listened to it. We will ensure that you sit more comfortably at home. Stephen will be in touch, right, to sort out something to help with your workspace at home.
Oh, thank you. That'd be fantastic.
Which will be
good. Thank you so much.
And in return, because Stephen missed out when he was a kid on going to the sort of day out where at Google stroke any kind of decent tech workspace, although he loves tech workspaces, don't you, because of the products that he sells. If your husband would like to invite him at any time for a field trip to wherever he's working now, he'd be
swap notes.
He'd be more than
my people will talk to your people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Bit of old school bartering. That's what it is. So
cheeky bit of nepotism. Never got anyone anywhere.
Absolutely, he'd be more than happy to come to that. He'll even bring his own packed lunch. Okay.
Oh, they do a really good lunch at Google. Just
hang on. He'll want to come as well. We need 2 spaces.
If it's anything like Amazon, I used to love the lunch.
Better than Amazon.
Is it better? Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's going up, and that's going some. Right?
They have smoked salmon at breakfast. Like, it's amazing. Like, who does that?
We're there.
I love it.
We are.
Yeah, we're there. Right.
Clear the diary. Any day you want. Cancel anything in the diary.
Smoked salmon.
I know. And avocado. Bonkers.
Yeah, your own personal barista.
Yeah,
honestly.
Literally on each level, on each floor.
Oh my word!
I know, mind blown. They've got a burrito.
Kids.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't know that there's any kids watching this, but kids, if you're watching this, that's why you need to work in tech.
Yeah.
Right.
Forget anything else you've got your eyes on. Go work for Google.
Do your exams. Study hard, go and work for Google, because the sandwiches are to die for.
Yeah.
So good. Love a sandwich.
When you're older, you'll realise this is a priority. There you go. Rachel, it's been wonderful having you here today. Thank you so much for that.
Having me.
And thank you, folks, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. As usual, if you'd like to catch up on previous conversations of this, you can at wowergonomics.com. We'd love to see you there, and click through the links there and go and have a look at what Bacher Elkhuysen are up to as well. They'd love you to have a look at their website. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. Until then, look after yourselves out there, and remember, we need to keep talking to each other. That's one of the biggest lessons from today. Bye for now.